Hi, I'm Mac McCarthy, and I help people with their breakup, situationships, and relationships. Let's get into it today. Breakup tips 101, top 10 questions to ask yourself when you break up. So, the way I did this today is actually I'm going to give you my top 10 questions off the cuff. This isn't something I studied or spent, 2 months on. This is just what comes to mind right now, fresh. I also went to ChatGPT because I think a lot of people are going to start doing that, right? ChatGPT offers a lot of answers to questions, and I wanted to see what they came up with. So, what I'll do is first I'll go with my top 10 questions, and then I'll go with ChatGPT, which is going to be completely different and is coming from a different standpoint. So, let's get into it. Number one, what were the issues and problems specifically? So, this would be your number one thing to make a list of. And it seems obvious, but a lot of times people are focusing more on how to get someone back or what they did to them, but they really don't get to the problems. Like, what was the problem here? So, when I say specifically, if someone's to say, oh, we had issues with communications, that's not specific, that's extremely broad. What you want to get into is specifically, they were really messy. Specifically, they went, one of the big ones right now in 2024 is communication through text. So, I was texting them, they didn't get back to me. They're always late for appointments, dates, dinner time, whatever. Write everything out because you're going to come up with more things than you think. And they can be small things. But what you really want to do is what's up, Ben? What you really want to do is you want to be very specific on those problems and just get on a roll, write them out. This isn't to share with them. This isn't to go to town. This is just for your own little cheat sheet. So when you're sitting there lonely, looking out over the window, thinking about, oh, I want them back. Oh, they're the greatest thing in the world. I'll never know anyone like that again. You can go like, all right, we did have some problems. Right. And maybe you're the type like, oh, we could have fixed these problems. Oh, we could have done this. Oh, these problems aren't that big a deal now. Whatever. Just write out the problems and be extremely specific. Okay. That's number one. Can you do that? Thank you. Number two, how can I accept this breakup for what it is? Okay. Why? And so on the flip side of that, what I would tell people is if you can accept it, because there's some people out there that are like, I just can't accept this. I can't believe she left. I can't believe she did this. I can't believe this. I can't believe that. They just can't accept it as reality. They're going through their minds trying to create new realities. And this is when you'll go on YouTube and you'll look for a channel or a post or a reel that somehow gives you some kind of quote unquote hope that it's going to work out minus all the problems and issues, which is possible. But what you need to do at ground zero when you're in the breakup and you're really going through it is really ask yourself, all right, can I accept this right now? We're broken up. Can I get in that out of that gray area and just be black or white? Like we're broken up right now. Okay. It's tough, especially the first week or two, because subconsciously you're still together. This is why when you break up on whatever grounds, it's really hard because when you hit ground zero in that first 2 or 3 days when you're not sleeping together or you're not around each other, it gets ghostly is the word. So if you say like, I can't accept it, write out, why can't I accept it? I can't accept it because I know we're better than this. I can't accept it because we got married and it was till death do us part. Write it out. Write out your reason. Because before you can get back together, you have to accept the reality that you are broken up. All right, number three. Where or what can I take legitimate accountability for my actions? So this is kind of a loaded question because sometimes what people do is they'll take accountability because they feel guilty and they feel like guilt might be attractive to their partner. They feel like taking blame could somehow bring someone back, or they're falling on the sword. They're fighting for the relationship. These are themes that come up a lot. But the reality is like, where can you take legitimate accountability? You cheated. All right, that's a legitimate thing. That's bad. That a lot of people don't accept in relationships. Okay, you haven't had a job in 6 months. All right, legitimate accountability. Non-legitimate accountability is like, oh, we didn't date enough. It's like, okay, but she didn't want to go on dates too. You need to get a little bit more detailed on that. Legitimate accountability for my actions. Okay, so where are you? This isn't the blame game. This isn't you being passionate about how wrong you were. It's like really right. And when sometimes people take accountability looking for some kind of reaction, these are things that you legitimately feel like you did wrong as an individual. Number four, if I had to do this relationship over again, this is a great question. Start to finish, what would I do differently? And this is the thing about questions like this is you think like, if you're reading this right now, you're not in a breakup, you're like, "Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I probably wouldn't do that right away." When you're in it and your mind's reeling, you need some direction, right? So this kind of a question, you can spend some time on it. You can journal it out, you could type it out. You can go, "Oh, when we first met," and you can kinda go back through the relationship and figure out not where you went wrong, but maybe where you would have done something different or where you accepted something. This is a big one. Let's say the fact that, when you met them, they didn't have a car. Okay, so they didn't have a car and they were really low on money, but you were attracted to each other. You're going to make it work. Conversations were good, but they were low on money. They had money issues. And in that moment, you accepted the fact that all right, I'm gonna start paying their rent for them. I'm gonna start paying for all the meals because I know they're low on their money. And somewhere inside of you, it was your pleasure to do so because you were having good intimacy and you love them, you care about them, you like them, you're attracted, whatever your reasons are. But you realize you just set a precedent for the rest of the relationship being the person that pays for everything, and you didn't like that a year later. There's some people that are like they're rich enough, they have enough money, or they just ride like that it's okay. The problem is you're kind of creating a monster because how you start things is how you finish it. So if you create that someone instead of them finding a job, they're like, oh wait, Sally, she'll pay for all my bills. Subconsciously, it's like I don't need a job. So later on, that person's like, well, in the get go, maybe I would have not accepted the fact that I got to pay for everything. Maybe I would have not accepted the fact. I just had someone recently talk to me about this too. That they fall into these relationships where they're financially taking care of the other person. That's a big issue because when you do that, when the person breaks up with you, they also lost their job. So it's like a double whammy, right? Because losing a job sucks. That's a harsh thing, especially if you have bills and you don't have a nest egg or savings. So when you look at it start to finish, you can start to see some of the patterns of them or you of where things started and where you accepted something that you don't like now. For example, if you're always doing the laundry 3 years later, doing the laundry, doing the dishes, but you did it since Jump Street, you did it since the beginning of the relationship, and now you don't like it. You can look at that and go, all right, like what's changed that I don't like it now that they took advantage of that, or the fact that um, I always do this. I start the relationship off giving so much, and then now you can make some references not to get down on yourself. It's almost like if you look at it like a lot of sports teams, right? Football, baseball, basketball, they'll look over tape. You imagine if you had video of your whole relationship. I'm sure in the future they'll have this on Black Mirrors or one of those shows, and you can go back and literally be like, "Oh, that was the moment. This was the moment." There's all these little micro moments that create new riffs and new rules to your relationship. So what you don't realize is like when you look back over it and you timeline it, you're like, oh shit, when we first met, she was broke. She had no money. She couldn't pay her car bill. And I took over that. And then from that on, for the next year or two, that was always an issue. And I would get more and more mad about that. Okay. That's one, right? So what you want to do is go through that. Number five, is this relationship and breakup part of a bigger pattern for me? This is a fucking great question. So if you look at your prior relationships and maybe you even want to group in relationships that you witnessed, like your parents or your grandparents or your auntie and uncle or, a best friend. But is there a pattern here where you keep breaking up the same way or that you keep getting the same type of person that you don't like? It's all right if you have a type. Is that someone that you grow with and you actually have a good relationship or it always ends up in a bad way? Um, So looking for that pattern where you're like, oh, and it's not a lot of times people can see the patterns in physical. Oh, I like blondes. Oh, I like such and such culture or race of women. Okay, I like this size. But when you think about patterns, think about more like narratives. I'm always dating someone that's on drugs. That's a bad one, right? Where are you hanging out? How is this happening? Why are you enabling it? So where's the bigger pattern? Number 6, what do I want from life as an individual? Now, this would be one that, like, you want a goal specifically. Maybe you don't want to ask this right at ground zero. So some of these questions, like right at ground zero, like you just broke up, it's hard to get to these points because it's just loneliness, it's hurt, it's crying, it's I want them back. This would probably be like 5, 6 days down the road. The reason why you want to get in touch with who you are as an individual is because a lot of times, whoever you're with, one of the reasons subconsciously you didn't last is because you guys aren't congruent on your goals and plans. It's very rare that someone breaks up with someone that they're congruent with on goals and plans long term. Now that might have changed, but from Jump Street, from first 6 months to a year to 2 years, 3 years, these long term goals like a house, kids, marriage, these are all finish lines that are kind of classic, right? But you look at a 20 something relationship or early 20 something relationship, and actually it could be different, right? It's like, oh, just graduating college, oh, getting into my career. Well, if your career, one's a veterinarian and one's a divorce lawyer, those are going to be incongruent probably down the road. Like, so these are things that come up that you can make more sense. But the other part of you specifically looking at your goals that's really important is the fact that you can start to think to yourself, okay, I'm on my own right now. These are things that you can actually, not in the first day, not in the first month, that you can focus on now that you're single. There's way more of an ability to focus on your goals when you're single because you don't have to negotiate what you're doing, how you're making moves, where you're putting money. Now, if you're in a relationship where you guys are congruent, then it works. If you just got out of a breakup and you really have some big goals, you probably should focus on those while you're single. And the cool thing about that is, like, the silver lining to that, you probably, if you had a long-term relationship or a relationship that really counted to you and you're really hurting, you probably should take a break anyways, catch your breath, and figure out what you want to do next anyways. Because if you get back out there, you get in the dating apps, you start dating again, you're wounded on the savannah, and you'll probably end up in a bad relationship that doesn't last long. You'll be bitter, you'll be overcompensating, and you'll lose track of your goals even more. And so instead of getting right on the dating apps and dating takes energy when you're trying. Now, let me explain that. If you're in a position where you're not really happy with yourself or you're still wounded from a past breakup, you're going to be trying to date. You're going to be trying to make these dates worse. Um, and so you'll be more frustrated when it doesn't work out. Where if you're like, you're doing better at work, you're getting some raises, you're going to the gym, like Ben just mentioned, you know, things you're improving yourself, which is so cliche. Specifically, what are you going to improve yourself on? If you're doing these things, the interesting thing is organically, you'll start to attract more people and dating will be easier. So, also on the flip side, when you feel that pressure from friends or family, like, oh, just get back out there, get back on the horse. And that's the quickest way to get over someone is to get on top of someone else. Um, yeah, okay, they just want you to get back in the game, and there's certain people that can do that like that. There's 10% of the population, everyone's a little different. Here's the thing, if you're not that person and you need to heal a little bit, then you can just say, "Hey, I'm just working on my stuff right now. I'm working on this goal." And then you can feel good about the fact that you're taking a break away from dating, trying to get with someone. And you also need to reevaluate that crucial thing that I just mentioned of finding someone that's congruent with the things you want to do with your kind of future instead of someone you're just attracted to. 7, what are the reasons I want them back, if any? So you should write these out. You should really write these out. Like what, because a lot of times it's like, oh, I just want them back because you're scared, you're lonely, you miss the intimacy, there's a void. Okay, those are reasons. But like sometimes when they get deeper with people, some of their reasons are pretty shallow. And then and that's okay. Like, let's just be honest with yourself, right? Your reason might be, that's the hottest woman I've ever dated, and it felt really good to go to public events and have her on my arm, and I don't think I can get another one like that. That's a real reason. You're not gonna tell your friends and family that. Write that down, because that right there is just a limited belief. You just created that. You just said that like, "Oh, I could never get someone like that again." Okay, so write that down. That's something you need to work on. What's the other thing? "Oh, I've always been bad at dating. Me getting back out there, I'm scared to date again." Okay, write that down. Write them all down, and then look at, like, what are some solutions? What am I not seeing about these? What are the reasons I want them back, if any? Not, I just want them back, right? Caesar girl, the artistry of a breakup. What does that mean? So, when here's the thing, when you journal or you write questions that are open-ended questions like this, you'll be surprised what comes up. Half of my job is asking good questions. Oh, that's a good question. I didn't think about that. Because you're obsessed on one question. How do I get them back? Oh, I have to go no contact to get them back. If you ask these 10 questions first, you'll have a way better foundation on where you're headed. You'll act, and another way you could do this is you could have a friend ask you the question, friend or family member that you're really close to. And the important part of it is just to be open. The value that I have being a coach asking these questions, I'm neutral. I'm not going to tell your friends and family. I'm not going to make a joke about you. We're going to have a good conversation about this. We can go through this. You can share it. You can tell me those personal things. You can't really do that with friends, family, and coworkers sometimes. So, number 8, what's my level of attraction, trust, connection on a scale of 1 to 10? You can come back to this one over and over again. So, this is a nice little reader of just seeing where you're at, and you'll be surprised sometimes. So, a lot of times people be like, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your attraction? 8, 9, 10, sometimes 6, 7, right? You can also see what you're settling on, right? Because there's a lot of people, oh, they're a 10, oh, they're 11. There's some people like, oh, they're a 6, oh, they're a 7, attraction wise. What's your connection, chemistry? Oh, like a 5 or 6. Trust, if your trust is below 8 or 9, it's really hard to have a real good relationship, right? Like that's the one that needs to be the highest. That's the one that needs to be at 9 or 10. Attraction is important. It's not as important for everyone, but attraction is not always looks. It could be body language, how people carry themselves. It's like the artistic, mature ways of getting through a breakup. There's almost an art to it. The conversation of how to do it maturely is so important. What are you mentioning? What you are mentioning is like an art for a breakup. Well, thanks, Seizure Girl. I like the way you put that. Thanks for giving me a little bit more details on that. Um, I call it like mental martial arts, right? These questions, what's unique about this, right? When you ask good questions that are open ended, that can have multiple answers, is you're no longer getting scaled information. This is the biggest problem online right now. And Chat GPT is a great tool for a lot of different things. In the beginning, I'm like, oh, this is going to be bad. This is going to be, it can help you a lot of ways. So someone might go, oh, I can come up with, this is how a lot of content is going to come up in the future. Okay. So what I'm going to do after these are my 10 questions. And like I said, I didn't spend fucking 10 days of research on this or anything like that. This is what I came up right before the live stream. And they're pretty good questions if you ask me. Now, that connection, attraction, trust, you can immediately do that with any of your friends or family members or yourself and get a quick reading on like, where am I at with this person? Okay, I'm attracted to them. It's a 10. Connection's a 7. Sometimes it's an 8. Connection kind of goes up and down. The crazy thing is, if you're with someone for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, your attraction goes up and down too, because when you live together 24 hours a day and someone's got a cold, they're in their jammies all day. They don't look as attractive as that fucking first date. So attraction's fleeting too. Now, trust is the one though, that when people come to me for a breakup, it's always 5 or less. And they're complaining, they're upset, they're fucking amped up. It's like, so why don't you have trust? I just never trusted them. Okay, do you have a reason? Well, they post a lot of photos on Instagram. So did you accept that early in the relationship? Yeah, in the beginning I thought it was okay, but I talked to them and I told them not to post so much, but they were doing it. It's like, know who you're dealing with. If this person you met on the beach was wearing a string bikini, thong, and suddenly you're like, oh, she's not going to do that if she's with me. It's like, so what do you're going to repress the individual's character or personality because you're scared. And 2 years later, they did that. And now 2 years later, they want to wear their bikini again. You have an issue. That's your problem. Number 9, what am I most scared of now that I'm single? This is a great question. So a lot of times for a lot of people, it's being alone. And sometimes people think like that's such a personal thing. That's a big one for most people. We are social creatures. Okay. If you read any of the works from, I believe her name was Helen Fisher. She's a great anthropologist, which means the study of humans and primates. Um, we're social creatures. We like acceptance. We like to be in groups. There's a new thing in the world. People live alone now sometimes, which actually is admirable, right? You have your own apartment, you have your own car, you take care of yourself. I've done it. I've lived on my own throughout my life a few different times. Proud of it. Can take care of my bills, can eat alone at a restaurant or something like that. There's something to that. Now, when you go from that to being in a romantic relationship or a good relationship again, or a lot of social interaction with an individual you really care about, and then you get that taken away from you, it's really harsh. And then you feel like, oh, I'm going to be alone forever. That's just a narrative that if you don't get a handle on it, you can play on repeat in your head. And the fact that you're not wanting to be alone for a long time is a completely natural thing for a human being. Because, like I said, even if you're an introvert, which I'm not, and you like your alone time, you still want physical interaction. You still want intimacy. You still want attention. And so that's a real thing to fear. It's not something to ruminate on and feel bad about. And you also can have a period in your life where you enjoy being alone for 6 months or a year. But your mind's probably going to get back to that point at some point that it's nicer to be around people. So my point is when you write down what you're really scared about being single, and the other thing is that's very common is just never meeting someone that great again, that you connect with so well and that is so hot and makes so much money. The reality is the world's a big place, and when you get back on deck, whenever that is, and you get everything back in place, you might not find that person right away, but you might find someone better. That's how you change that fucking narrative. And you also change that narrative by saying you're never going to meet the same person. You'll hear me say that a lot, right? Because even twins aren't the exact same, right? Paternal twins or whatever, identical twins, they still have a little bit different personality. So you're never going to meet the same person again. That's just something you need to accept. The idea that you'll never meet someone that great is ridiculous. Someone that you think is like, wow, I just made this great connection with this person. It's like, wow, they just tick all the boxes. That's a possibility. Just like jobs. If you had 5 jobs, there could be one job you're like, wow, it was just perfect. I've had a job or two in my life where I'm like, wow, just like everything was right. Like everything went right. When you first break up, you're not going to meet another person like that again. So if that's what you're worried about, then accept that, but also think I can meet someone equal or better. Maybe better. Maybe better for me right now. Number 10, have I been through worse and got through it before? This is a great question to ask yourself. I wrote them, so I should know. If you look at your life and you live long enough, this might be not as easy for people in their early 20s to mid 20s that haven't been through a lot of shit or anything, of proportion. So I saw this reel on Instagram today, and I can't quote it exactly, but this guy was like, the only way you're going to grow is to face some tragedies in life. The only way you're going to change your life or change your direction is have like a tragedy or something really stun you. right? And it's absolutely true. And here's the thing, if you haven't had a tragedy yet, it'll find you. It's coming. It's human. It's just what happens. How big a tragedy? I don't know. How you react to that? That's up to you. The reality is it's going to happen. If you have 5 breakups, maybe one of them's a tragedy and the rest were just bad, relationships, whatever. It tends to be that one of those is a relationship or 2, right? Bottom line is this is going to help you change because we're we're creatures of comfort. If nothing rocks our boat and we keep doing it, then we'll keep doing it. There's no consequences to it. But if you look at your life and you're like, wow, like I thought it was the end of the world when I got kicked out of high school. I never got kicked out of high school. But people have these moments where it's like ground zero and it's so harsh and it's so embarrassing and so upsetting and it's so shameful. And then they come out of it. And the secret to that is just to keep showing up, to go through the obstacle, to not give up on your life, right? And so when you're in these bad situations and breakups and situations like that, looking for outlets, alternatives, but also telling yourself, I've been through some tough times before. I'm going to get through this one. And that might sound too simple and surface based, but if it's reiterated every time you're ready to quote unquote give up or my life sucks, guess what? A lot of other people's life sucks. It's part of life. Now I can say that right now. And when life sucks, I don't like to uh sit here and go, oh yeah, I'm just gonna get better and everything. But if you really reminisce, when's the last time I've been in this place before? Mm, yeah. Oh yeah. Mm, oh, you've been through a lot more than you think that you thought were bigger reasons than you are now in a breakup. All right, anyone in the chat right now, Seizure Girl, Ben, anyone, if you want to throw some comments, what I'm going to do now, just to give you guys some contrast, those are questions I would ask as top 10 questions to ask once you break up. So Chat GPT, this is what they being whoever Chat GPT is. What did I learn from this relationship? So just keep in mind, if you're going to write this one, this probably wouldn't be the one you'd say in the first week, right? You imagine your friend calling you up crying and upset, and you're like, hey, um, what did you learn from the breakup? It's like, I just want them back. So that particular question, which is not a bad question. It's gonna be time stamped, right? That would be like 3 months later, unless the person's just really over the relationship, right? Consider the lessons about love, communication, and personal boundaries. So just remember when you go to ChatGPT, they're gonna have these huge umbrellas of scaled information topics, personal boundaries, not specific personal boundaries, just the title. Number 2, what were my favorite moments with this person? Okay. I don't know if that's a good one. I don't know if that's one that you want to go back to when you're hurting or you want them back. Um, Reflecting on happy times can help process the loss and recognize what brings you joy. I think for some people that can work, but not everyone for sure. Number 3, what were the deal breakers for me in this relationship? Identify the non-negotiables that you should watch for in future relationships. A lot of times people aren't looking for future relationship advice when they're post breakup right from the get-go. So the deal breakers from me in this relationship, I like to say problems and issues because I don't know if people think of things as deal breakers is different than problems and issues. Problems and issues can be something where you both realize there's a problem there, but you have different answers for the problem. Where deal breakers are just like, this is just something I don't like. It's very specific to you. Um, and I don't like that question. How have I changed since being with this person? Assess personal growth. Big word here again for changes in your behavior, priorities, and preferences. That's actually how I've changed since I've been being with this person. Excuse me. How have I changed since being with this person? The reason why that's a fucking outstanding question is it might be you've changed for the worse. Have you ever seen a friend or had a friend, maybe not seen, had a friend that is in a new relationship that becomes 2 years, 3 years, and you just lose touch with the individual because they're changing so much? They're forming who they are based on this new girlfriend or boyfriend, husband or wife, and they've actually really changed, and from your outlook, you're like, they've become a cutthroat business person, they become a liar, they become closed off. In your viewpoint, like, 'cause there's a lot of people out there, they'll get in a new relationship, and if the person's jealous, they'll have them cut off friends. So I would say that it wouldn't necessarily be if you say, "How have I changed since being with this person?" It wouldn't necessarily always all be good, because if it was all good, hopefully you'd stay together. Um, that's a good question to ask. I like that one. What could I have done differently is a minefield, because what happens is post breakup when someone goes, "What can I have done differently?" They think that if they would have done that one thing differently, everything would have went in their favor, which is complete bullshit. So the idea of whenever you have shoulda, coulda, wouldas, which we do as human beings, because we like to look into the past to make future decisions or just to ruminate. That's just what humans do. Um, if you look at that and you go, "What could I have done differently?" I'd rather say, "What can I take accountability for?" The idea, you just have to say like, "Oh, I would have done this differently. I would have done this differently." Just know that it doesn't. I have people do that sometimes, and I can still see you still would have broken up. The individual cheated on you multiple times and lied to you. So even if you would have done this, this, and this, would they have still cheated and lied to you? Because that's part of their character and the way they are in relationships. Probably. So just keep in mind, even if you think you could have done some things differently, the outcome might have been the same. Um, 6, what do I need in a relationship that I was not getting? Consider emotional, physical, and mental needs. That's a really good question. Um, and some of those things you're not getting are some of your own faults, right? But that's a good question. Ben says, I would say since I let go of someone, I feel so relieved, like a weight is gone. I can have more fun. Excellent. You have more freedom of what you do. The tough thing is, what do I need in a relationship that I was not getting? Sometimes people will think, I was getting everything and now I have nothing. So that's a hard fall sometimes. What will I miss the least about this relationship? That's a good question. That's a good question. What's up, Laffy Quince? You're up late. In Thai time, you got to be, shoot, man. It's got to be the middle of the night. Um, what do I miss least about this relation? Very good question. Maybe do a top 5. Don't mind if it's petty either, huh? Uh, what qualities will I look for in my next partner? Now, this is one of those ones that's really good to ask, but a lot of times people aren't ready to go there till maybe like 6 months down, 3 months down, 9 months. So that's a good question, but I think when I was asking the questions I asked, they're a little bit better when you're at ground zero that first month, that first 3 weeks, that first 2 months. Whereas these questions are like, maybe down the road you do that. Is it fair to cheat back if your boyfriend cheated on you? That you make your own rules, live. So just remember, 2 wrongs don't make a right. If you're doing that to listen, this is how humans are. If you hurt me, I want to hurt you, and that it's just like if you get punched or smacked. A lot of times, someone will want to punch or smack you back or get you back. Revenge is a real thing. Who The thing about revenge, nobody wins. It's just where does it end? Who goes lower? So if you think like, oh, they cheated on you, I'm going to cheat on them back. Okay, so what's the game here? Ego? Like you're not going to win. I'll give you a quick story on that. Um, Years back, I used to tell this story when I was a teacher. Years back, I'll never forget this, and I probably told this on a few live streams. This is a good example. It's like, where does it end? Okay, there was a street fight occurring in front of a house I was staying at. I was in an apartment complex. I was renting my house out for Airbnb, so I was staying at this apartment complex where it was a bunch of people I didn't know. Not a bad area or anything like that. Anyways, in the parking lot where the parking lot was in this apartment complex, there was a fight starting. So, just to put it in context, stay with me, Liv. Stay with me, Laffy. This guy is with a girl, and this other guy's got a Mercedes. He's dressed all nice. And the two guys are arguing in Russian. So, I don't know what they were saying, but they were obviously amped up and pissed off at each other. And the one guy that's got the Mercedes is more well dressed. Like, like the other guy's kind of skinny, but he's like 6'3", 6'4". He's a tall guy. But he's, like smoking a cigarette. He's a little less athletic. And the woman's on the sidelines filming the argument. And I'm thinking, like, as this thing's amplifying, I'm thinking, what's going on here? I got a front row seat. I'm about 10, 20 feet away, and I'm in my doorway, so I don't need to get involved, right? I don't like being a spectator to things like this, but it's literally on my doorway at the time. So they're going back and forth. All of a sudden, someone throws a punch, and the dude that's with the Mercedes, it's a little more. He was way more athletic. He was built, right. This dude drops a 1-2 punch, fucking jump kicks the fucking guy. I'm like, oh shit, this guy knows fucking like serious martial arts, right? He fucking jump kicks him, and he fucking throws the guy into the bush, and the girl's like filming it the whole time, right? And they're yelling, and so the one guy's kicking the other guy's ass. All of a sudden, this dude like jumps back, pulls out like a little pocket knife. Like when I say a pocket knife, I mean it might have been like a 3-inch blade. It wasn't very big, but it's a knife. And he starts going like this. He starts going like this, and the guy's like, even though it's a small knife, it's still a fucking knife, right? So the guy's like moving backwards, like like going back. The guy runs away because he keeps going with the knife. I think to myself, damn, that was cheap. I go back into my house, and a minute goes by. This guy comes back with like a fucking pickaxe from a construction site. And he's like this. He's walking like this. And the other guy goes, oh shit. So he's got this pickaxe that he's with him. I'm like, that fucking pocket knife's done, right? The pocket knife's, there's no way. And the guy's like, I guess the guy was, full of himself. He's like, oh, I don't care. And the guy has the pickaxe, and he's like acting like he's going to fucking, take it to him. I'm thinking to myself, I don't even want to witness this. Security guard comes over from this complex. She goes, I'm calling the police. They both get in their car and leave. Long story short, what's the lesson here? So this guy, they start a fight, punch for punch. Someone's getting their ass kicked. So the guy, instead of using his fucking dukes up in his hands, he takes out a knife because he's getting his ass kicked. So when he takes out his knife, this guy goes and gets a pickaxe. Now, like, they're going harder and harder on who's going to get hurt more. And then the security guard just breaks it and it's like, do you guys want to go to jail? Okay. Who wins? So if you cheat on him, you cheat on them, and you guys keep going back and forth, what you're just creating is like a competition of meanness. Where does it end? It never feels like I said, like in that moment, right? So if you want to go do that because you think that you'll get them back, yeah, you might get a little bit of a dopamine rush when they find out and they're all upset. But on the flip side, they're going to get you back again. So just stop the bleeding, move on, grow up. Two wrongs don't make a right. Wish them well. What if he doesn't know that I did? It's a matter of time, Liv. Everyone gets caught cheating eventually. And I'll tell you this, if you don't get caught and that's your practice, then that's on you to live with. Now, if you're that type of person and you're like, I don't care because they did it to me, it's okay. What's your conscience about that? You're also always living in this constant way of like, oh, they better not find out. Oh, I better cover my DMs. It's not a good way to live. Now, if you have an open relationship or you guys are just ride like that, then go for it. That's fine. That's a different thing. If you're both going behind each other's backs claiming you never did that, then that's just basically a lie, right? But I've had clients before that cheated and got away with it, and their guilt after a year or 6 months is so high, they just break down and tell the truth later on. Now, if you keep going with that, like I said, there's other things you're gonna suffer from, like you knowing the truth and them not, like you having to the other thing that really hurts is, like, if you have to lie, like, let's say that something comes up that's a clue that you were cheating and you lie about it. Now you gotta lie more, now you gotta stack your lies. Where does it end? And let me just add one more thing, Liv. A lot of people cheat. It's human nature. I don't know if human beings were meant to be monogamous. I don't know. The rest of nature isn't. Supposedly, penguins are the only creature that has the same mate their whole life. I don't know. The fact that you're doing it behind someone's back and you somehow feel validated because they did it to you, but you didn't like it, just be single again or just have an open relationship. That's the alternative. What qualities will you look for in the next partner? Okay, number 9, how I handle future conflicts differently. It's a broad one. What are my goals for being single? That's one of those ones that will trigger someone in a breakup. What are your goals for being single? It's like, I've just become single. Like, if someone hasn't processed that all yet, that's not a question they like to answer. All right. Any closing questions, really quick? Go to rightmac.com if you want to book a live coaching session. If you don't, that's all good too. You want to do some hypnosis, some other things, that's good too. When people cheat, they will be sure to cheat again from experience and from what I see also. You will feel in trap of uncomfortable with yourself. Listen, it happens. It's done a lot. And a lot of times people once you cheat, you're always a cheater. That's not true. Like people can change, people can come out of it. There's all kinds of reasons to cheat. I could do a fucking 5-hour show on that. The bottom line is you make your own morals and values, right? You figure out what works for you. Bottom line is though, when you start lying in life, you think that you're hurting yourself because the more you lie, and let's face it, when you're young, you lie more because when you're younger, you're selfish more. Maybe someone's out there is like, oh no, I wasn't like that. I was like, you're more selfish when you're young. You have less people depending on you. You have less idea of what's wrong or right, and so it becomes more juvenile. Like, does your grandma and like think about your grandma and grandpa or old people, they don't give a fuck. They usually just tell the truth because they learned. It's better. It sets you free. It makes you feel better. They know. That's the ultimate level of we always talk about insecure people. The ultimate level of security is to be honest. And I'm no angel in my past. I'm not sitting here on a mountaintop of virtue. I'm a lot better than I was, and that's enough. Like you improve from these things. He cheated twice. In return, I did it twice. I don't plan to continue. Well, good for you, Liv. And I don't judge you. I'm not sitting here saying, "Oh, you're such a horrible person. You're such a cheater." It happened. It happens a lot, and you got to ask yourself, "What's my intention in doing this? Just to get someone back?" Problem is um you're probably in your 20s or something like that, and you guys just haven't navigated this enough. But if you guys keep playing this game, someone's gonna be left holding the bag going, "What happened to our relationship?" Even the truth kinda bitter, but true still be true. One of my clients years back, he had to break it down. He cheated on his girlfriend badly, hooked up with some girl for a week, and he just couldn't hold it in anymore. He told her everything, and she broke up with him. He's like, "I shouldn't have done it. I talked to some other people. They said I shouldn't have told the truth." I go, "That's who you are, though." Your morals and values, your compass says, like, "I can't lie this much." You gotta create that yourself. And really, you gotta treat people the way you wanna be treated. Because if you don't, it's just there's something called karma, whether you believe in it or not, seems to come true. Treat people how you wanna be treated. and ask yourself, am I really cheating for that reason to get them back? Or did I just like the fact that I want to hook up with other people? There's some people out there too, like that are conservative, that look the part, that seem really like upright, that go to church. They cheat too. And also they have trouble living with it. There's a lot more going on now in 2024 with open relationships. Is that wrong or right? It's up to you. You make your own decisions. Everything's a trade-off. It's what you do as a job, right? It's like, all right, give me this much money, tell me the schedule, I'll do this, this, and this, and you'll give me money. A lot of times in relationships are like, oh, relationships are about love and service. They are, but there's also a trade-off. How can I stop karma if I already did bad? That's a good question. That's for a different show. All right, take care. I do have to go. I got to get some lunch. Laffy, always good to see you. Live. One thing that you can do is you can improve your karma by doing good things outside of what you've done bad, but don't get too caught up in that. But I'm just saying, like, be a better person today, help your neighbor, do nice things, do your best, and forgive yourself. It's curtains.